If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. The NFL rumor mill never sleeps, and when it turns its gaze toward a potential blockbuster move, fans can't help but get caught up in the storm. Over the past 24 hours, the whispers have turned into roars as speculation grows that the Cleveland Browns could make a move for New York Jets wide receiver Garrett Wilson. Yes, that Garrett Wilson, the former Ohio State star who's been one of the few bright spots for the Jets in recent years. The very idea of him catching passes in a Browns uniform has set Cleveland on fire, at least metaphorically. It's the kind of rumor that takes over sports talk radio, dominates fan forums, and makes you refresh your feed every 5 minutes just to see if Adam Schefter has dropped a bomb. But let's slow down for a second and unpack what's really going on here, because this isn't just another rumor. It's a story that touches on frustration, opportunity, and the delicate art of timing in the NFL's high-stakes world. The Cleveland Browns, let's be honest, are desperate. Not for defense, not for running backs, but for a wide receiver room that can actually scare someone. Through the first half of the season, their passing attack has been borderline unwatchable. We're talking about one of the least efficient aerial offenses in the league. The stats don't lie: 178.3 passing yards per game, which ranks third worst in the NFL. Only 5 passing touchdowns all season. A completion rate of 58.8%. Those numbers aren't just bad. They're embarrassing for a team that still has playoff aspirations. And when you combine that with inconsistent quarterback play, it's no wonder the Browns have found themselves being mentioned in every trade rumor that involves a wideout with a pulse. Cleveland's passing offense has been like a car trying to run on fumes, and the fans know it. Every Sunday feels like a grind, a battle not just against the opposing defense, but against their own limitations. So, when someone mentions the possibility of Garrett Wilson joining the Dawg Pound, it feels like a lifeline. On the flip side, the New York Jets aren't exactly in a position of luxury either. Their offense has been sputtering for most of the season, and despite all the hype surrounding their defense and the promise of Aaron Rodgers' eventual return, things haven't gone as planned. Garrett Wilson, though, has remained a constant. The guy has been nothing short of a machine since entering the league. 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons despite catching passes from a carousel of quarterbacks who've struggled to stay upright, let alone play consistently. His route running, body control, and ability to create separation make him one of the most complete young receivers in football. And yet, even a player as patient and professional as Wilson can only endure so much dysfunction. Reports out of New York suggest that his frustration is growing. He's tired of losing, tired of excuses, and tired of being the only constant in a revolving door of mediocrity. In that sense, it's not hard to imagine why whispers of him being shopped around the league are picking up steam. Now, let's talk about why this rumor makes sense for both sides, or at least why people want it to. From Cleveland's perspective, this is an opportunity to fix a glaring weakness without waiting until the offseason. Their general manager, Andrew Berry, is not the kind of guy who sits on his hands. He's aggressive, strategic, and unafraid to take risks when he believes the move could shift the team's trajectory. Adding Garrett Wilson now would not only inject life into a stagnant offense, but it would also give the Browns a proven number 1 option that could anchor the unit for years to come. Imagine Deshaun Watson, or whoever ends up being the quarterback, having Wilson as a security blanket, someone who can turn a broken play into a 25-yard gain with nothing but footwork and instinct. That kind of addition changes the entire complexion of the offense. And let's not forget the emotional angle. Wilson is an Ohio State guy. Bringing him home would light up the fan base in a way few trades could. It's not just about production, it's about identity. But of course, nothing in the NFL comes without a price. The big question everyone's asking is, what would it cost to pry Garrett Wilson away from the Jets? To get a sense of the market, you only have to look at recent wide receiver trades. George Pickens, whose time in Pittsburgh had clearly run its course, was shipped off to Dallas for a 2026 third-round pick and a 2027 fifth-rounder. A bargain for the Cowboys, considering how quickly he's revitalized their offense. Then there's DK Metcalf, who went from Seattle to Pittsburgh earlier this year for a 2025 second-round pick and a late-round pick swap. Both of those deals set benchmarks for what a top-tier receiver might fetch on the trade market, depending on age, contract, and locker room reputation. Wilson, however, is a different animal. He's younger, cleaner off the field, and far more consistent in his production. If the Jets were truly willing to part ways with him, they'd want something substantial in return. Still, the Browns could make it work without sacrificing their first-round picks. A combination of a second-rounder and a couple of mid-to-late-round selections could be enough to get the Jets' attention, especially if Wilson himself is eager for a change of scenery. What makes this scenario even more intriguing is the timing. The Browns were always expected to address wide receiver depth in the upcoming draft. But why wait? By making a move now, they not only get a head start on building chemistry, but also gain flexibility heading into the offseason. With a star receiver already on the roster, Barry could focus on other areas of need: offensive line depth, defensive reinforcements, or even quarterback insurance. It's the kind of proactive move that good franchises make when they sense a window opening. And for Cleveland, that window isn't as wide as it seems. The defense is elite, the running game, despite losing Nick Chubb, has remained serviceable, and the AFC playoff race is always brutal. If the Browns want to make a serious push, they can't afford to keep trotting out a passing game that looks like it belongs in 1998. They need firepower. They need a spark. They need Garrett Wilson. From the Jets' perspective, trading Wilson would be painful but perhaps necessary. They've been in perpetual rebuild mode, and while Wilson is a cornerstone player, sometimes an organization needs to reset emotionally and strategically. If they believe Rodgers will only play another season or two, and if they're unsure about the long-term direction of the offense, flipping Wilson for premium draft capital might actually make sense. It's not an easy sell to fans, of course. No one wants to see their best offensive player leave. But if the relationship between Wilson and the front office has soured, and all signs suggest there's tension, then it might be better to move on now rather than later, when his value could drop. The Jets have to weigh loyalty against practicality, and in the NFL, practicality almost always wins. Now let's not kid ourselves. This is still just a rumor. As of now, there's no concrete evidence that trade talks have progressed beyond the whisper stage. But NFL rumors have a funny way of snowballing. Sometimes all it takes is a frustrated player, a motivated GM, and a front office willing to listen. And when the stars align, deals happen fast. Remember how quickly the Stephon Diggs trade materialized? One day it was speculation, the next it was breaking news. That's the beauty and chaos of this league. If the Browns truly want Wilson, they can make it happen. The question is whether they're willing to pay the price, and whether the Jets are ready to let go. Still, the potential fit is just too perfect to ignore. Garrett Wilson in Cleveland would be more than just a football move. It would be a statement. It would say to the rest of the league that the Browns are done playing small ball, done wasting time with mediocrity, done pretending that defense alone can carry them to a championship. It would give their offense an identity, a swagger, a player who can change games with a single touch. And for Wilson, it would be a homecoming of sorts, a return to Ohio where his football legend first began. You can picture it now, the Dawg Pound erupting as Wilson hauls in a deep ball down the sideline, scarlet and gray nostalgia blending with the orange and brown of a team desperate for something to believe in. The story practically writes itself. At the end of the day, time will tell if there's any truth to this buzz. But one thing's for sure, Cleveland fans can't stop dreaming about it. Because deep down, they know that sometimes, one player can change everything. Garrett Wilson could be that player. And if Andrew Barry and the Browns front office are serious about shaking things up, now's the time to make a move that could redefine the franchise for years to come. Whether it happens or not, the conversation itself says something powerful. The Browns are no longer content to watch from the sidelines. They're ready to go big or go home. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. All right, folks, sit down, grab your coffee, because this one's going to shake the NFL world like an earthquake under the Cleveland skyline. The whispers that started as nothing more than faint chatter in locker rooms and late-night text threads have finally burst into the open. And the man who lit the fuse? None other than Nick Chubb. Yeah, that Nick Chubb. The quiet, stoic, laser-focused running back who's always been known for letting his game do the talking. But this time, he couldn't keep quiet. After months of speculation, silence, and confusion about what's been happening behind closed doors in Berea, Chubb finally broke the silence. And what he revealed might just expose a serious crack running through the heart of the Browns locker room. Now, let's rewind a bit, because to really understand why this is blowing up the way it is, we've got to remember who Chubb is. This is a guy who rarely says anything. He's old school, almost like he's from another era of football, all business, no drama. He's been through the highs and lows with Cleveland, the playoff droughts, the Baker Mayfield years, the chaos, the injuries, the heartbreaks, and that single shining playoff victory that felt like a lifetime's worth of validation for fans who've suffered for decades. But through it all, he's been the emotional anchor of this team. So when someone like Nick Chubb speaks out, you listen, and you know it's not for attention. You know it's because something's really wrong. According to sources close to the team, and from what Chubb himself reportedly said in a recent closed-door interview that somehow leaked to the media, there's a disconnect growing inside the Browns organization. A divide that's not just about football, it's about trust, leadership, and identity. He allegedly spoke about how the locker room doesn't feel the same, how some guys are about themselves, and how there's too much noise, not enough focus. It's not an angry outburst, it's disappointment. The kind that cuts deep, especially coming from one of the most respected players in the league. He didn't drop names, but insiders are already piecing together the clues, and the picture forming is not a pretty one. Apparently, a lot of this tension revolves around the team's handling of the Deshaun Watson situation. Remember, when Cleveland went all in for Watson, trading a king's ransom and guaranteeing him one of the most controversial contracts in NFL history, not everyone in that locker room was thrilled. Some veterans reportedly felt blindsided, others felt betrayed. For a guy like Chubb, who's always been about accountability, hard work, and quiet leadership, seeing the franchise hand over that much power and money to someone who hadn't even played in a year was, well, it rubbed him the wrong way. And he wasn't alone. You could feel it in the air last season. That strange, tense vibe every time the team was asked about chemistry or leadership. Everyone smiled for the cameras, but behind the scenes, the cracks were already forming. And then came the injuries. Chubb's devastating knee injury last year not only broke hearts across the league, but also tested the Browns' internal unity. You'd think that kind of moment would pull a team together. But according to what's now being whispered, it did the opposite. There was frustration about how things were handled, from communication with medical staff to how some players allegedly moved on too quickly. Chubb, known for his humility, apparently felt that the focus shifted too fast from "we're here for Nick" to "we've got to save the season." It wasn't about pity. It was about respect. And when you've bled for an organization for years, seeing loyalty replaced by business decisions can sting. What's really wild, though, is how Chubb's comments have reignited old wounds in that building. Some players reportedly feel that he said what everyone was thinking, while others believe he should have kept it in-house. And that's the kind of tension that can derail a season, or maybe it already has. We've seen it before, a team that looks fine on paper but can't seem to play together with heart. The Browns have the talent, no doubt. Myles Garrett is still a monster. Amari Cooper is a quiet assassin, and that defense has shown flashes of being elite. But when trust erodes, when leadership fractures, even the most talented roster can crumble under its own weight. Chubb didn't say these things to stir drama. You can tell from his tone. It's not explosive, it's reflective. It's like a man who's been holding it in for too long and finally decided to tell the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. And maybe that's exactly what the Browns need right now, someone to stop pretending everything's fine. Because for years, Cleveland's tried to build this image of a reborn franchise, a team shedding its old curse and marching toward legitimacy. But if you strip away the headlines, the contracts, and the hype, you still need culture. You still need unity. And right now, according to Nick Chubb, that's exactly what's slipping away. The rumor mill is in overdrive now. Some insiders claim this could trigger bigger consequences, that this might be the beginning of a leadership shakeup, or even spark off-season roster changes nobody saw coming. Others think Chubb's words might actually save the Browns, forcing everyone to face the uncomfortable truth. Because let's be honest, sometimes it takes a guy like Chubb, a player who's universally respected, to break the silence and force a reckoning. You can only hide dysfunction for so long before it starts showing up on the field. Fans are torn, too. Some are praising Chubb for speaking his mind, calling him the real captain of this team. even if he doesn't wear the C on his chest. Others are nervous, worried that this kind of revelation could tear the locker room apart even further. Social media is on fire. Clips of his remarks are circulating everywhere, and you can feel the raw emotion behind every word. Cleveland fans are passionate, loyal to the bone, but they're also tired of hope turning into heartbreak. They want answers. They want change. And now, they're looking at Chubb not just as a player recovering from injury, but as a truth teller. What's fascinating about all this is how it highlights the shifting dynamics of modern NFL locker rooms. Gone are the days when players just kept quiet and let management handle everything. Today's athletes understand their voice has power. And when someone like Chubb, who's earned every ounce of respect through sweat, silence, and consistency, finally decides to use that voice, people listen. Maybe this is a turning point, not just for the Browns, but for how teams handle internal friction. Maybe the message isn't the Browns are broken, but the Browns need to find themselves again. Still, you can't ignore the timing. With the season reaching its critical stretch and playoff hopes hanging by a thread, this kind of internal revelation couldn't have come at a worse moment. Or maybe, just maybe, it came at the perfect one. Sometimes the truth hurts before it heals. Maybe Chubb's words will spark real accountability, force everyone, from coaches to players to front office execs, to look in the mirror. Because if there's one thing Nick Chubb has always embodied, it's integrity. He's never been about excuses, never been about drama. He's been about doing things the right way, even when it's hard. And if he's speaking out now, it's not for clicks. It's because he still believes in this team, even if it's fractured. So here we are, folks, standing at a crossroads. The Browns season could go one of two ways from here. Either this moment becomes the start of their unraveling, or it becomes the spark that reignites their soul. Maybe Nick Chubb, the quiet warrior who's carried this team on his back for years, just gave them one last gift, a wake-up call. And maybe that's exactly what Cleveland needed to hear, no matter how much it hurts. Because when Nick Chubb speaks, it's not noise. It's truth. And in a league full of talkers, sometimes the quiet ones have the most powerful things to say. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!